Future Trunks is the greatest hero in Dragon Ball history, and when I say that, I want you guys to pay very close attention to my word choice. I'm not saying he's the strongest fighter in Dragon Ball, I'm specifically saying that he's the greatest hero and there's no competition, as we will compare him to a variety of other characters throughout Dragon Ball history, and it will be made crystal clear as to why he is the greatest of all time, the GOAT. Now, the interesting thing about Future Trunks is that he has kind of a mix of all of the qualities of all of the other heroes mixed into one character. He's heroic, he kills on command, and will not allow his ego or his desire to want to fight a stronger opponent get in the way of what should be objectively done at a very specific moment. He always continues to train and tries to improve himself as compared to the present time counterpart of himself that completely sucks off, as we saw at the end of Dragon Ball Z. He never even got a chance to sniff what his true potential could be, along with Goten, because of living in a peaceful world. But most importantly, over everything else, Future Trunks is extremely altruistic. And for those of you who don't know what altruistic means, that's essentially when you put others above yourself. But for now, we are going to compare Future Trunks to a variety of other heroes. Our first character of comparison is going to be Gohan. And this is a great comparison because Trunks was directly trained by Gohan himself, at least in the future timeline. Now, what we have to understand is what puts Trunks over Gohan specifically is that the future counterpart of Gohan is a version of him that was just never able to live up to his full potential, so he was essentially too weak to do the things that Future Trunks was eventually able to do later on. But when compared to the main timeline version of Gohan, that version of Gohan is a lot softer because he lives in a much better timeline. And while that version of Gohan is stronger, because he doesn't actually train, if that version of Gohan were to ever be in a situation where he would have needed to train to fight against a stronger foe, it would put jeopardy on the entire planet because he just has to rely on his potential all the time in the present timeline to bail him out of a lot of situations. And we can just think of three. To just use a quick example, we could look at the moments against Cell and the Cell Juniors where Gohan's power got him out of that situation. Then we can analyze the Buu arc where, at least for the time being, he was able to fight off Super Buu by using Elder Kai's unlocked ability. And last but not least, in Dragon Ball Superhero, I hate using that double super, he was able to turn into Beast Gohan and defeat Max Cell. So for all of those reasons, Gohan just relies on his potential, but his work ethic in the main timeline is not that of a fighter the way it is for Future Trunks, and because of that, that could get people in trouble if there weren't other strong characters that were alive along with Gohan to fight against these threats. So because of his work ethic and training, combined with also being an extremely powerful character in himself, Trunks is overall above Gohan. Next, we have to compare Trunks to Vegeta, which is so easy, because we can go back to the Android arc and just look at how Cell manipulated Vegeta because he understood his personality and tricked him into allowing him to absorb Android 18 so that he could become more powerful, and at this point, Vegeta stood no chance against Cell. Now, this is such an easy example to prove how powerful Trunks is, because in this moment, Trunks directly told Vegeta about the threat that Cell could be, and he actually tried to kill Cell himself because he realized that his father wasn't going to do it. And what does Vegeta do in this situation? He literally fights his own son so that he can prove his own Saiyan pride. But it doesn't just end there. We can go back to an earlier situation where the androids are released, but they're not directly trying to kill the other heroes outside of Goku. They were trying to take the long route, which gave our heroes time to plan out how they were going to fight him. So instead of choosing the more logical way to defeat them, what does Vegeta decide to do? He decides, I don't care about all of you guys, I'm just going to go by myself and go fight the androids anyways, and just flies towards them. Now, the interesting thing here is that Trunks and the others had to obviously follow Vegeta anyways, but that's once again another point where Vegeta doesn't put the lives of others before himself. He clearly wants to prove himself as a Super Saiyan, especially at that time because he had unlocked his abilities and his ego was on cloud 9, so he needed to test himself against 18, and look what happened. He lost. Now, there's two other moments here where we can also briefly mention Vegeta and his interactions with Trunks both directly and indirectly. We see a moment where Vegeta was standing around, and once the androids were released in Dr. Gero's lab, what is the first thing that Trunks does? He powers up an extremely powerful blast when they were off guard, and attacks them. Now, obviously, it didn't work, and they didn't obviously take any serious damage from it, but that act in itself, even though it wasn't successful, shows how heroic he is. He tried his best to kill them while they were off guard and thought maybe I can just do a really strong blast right now and kill him. It failed, but it shows the kind of hero that he is in terms of trying to get rid of his enemies before they become a greater threat. And also, another thing too, this takes us right after Trunks arrived. He made a statement to Goku saying that if I knew where Dr. Gero was, I would be paying him a visit right now and not talking to you. Now, looking at the present version of Bulma, who decided to use the Dragon Balls and locate where Dr. Gero's lab and kill him before he caused any threats, look at what Vegeta and Goku said and reacted to in that moment. They clearly wanted a chance to fight him, and Goku was making some statements saying that he hadn't done anything wrong yet. So, once again, Vegeta's Saiyan pride is a major reason as to why Future Trunks is a far greater hero than he will ever be. Now let's compare him to Goku, since we just mentioned him. This is a Goku that was fighting on planet Namek and literally stood there and told Frieza, go ahead and power up into your full form. I'm not going to try and kill you when you're powering up. This is very similar to Vegeta. That Saiyan desire to want to fight and train is awesome in terms of making Dragon Ball a much more entertaining show, because let's be honest, if Goku and Vegeta played by the rules and did everything that they were supposed to at all the times, the show would be significantly more boring. So this is obviously great for writing why Saiyans behave the way that they do. But let's not forget that Goku also has an exclusive problem to him that Vegeta doesn't have, and this is actually the total opposite. It is the mere fact that sometimes Goku is just too nice to his enemies, and in a lot of cases this has often come back to stab Goku in the back. The first major example in Dragon Ball Z would be his own brother. Raditz manipulated Goku into releasing his hands off of his tail, and what did Raditz do? Raditz attacked Goku, and then the next time Goku had an opportunity, he had to sacrifice his whole life in order to bring Raditz down. Now, ultimately, it was actually a good thing that he did that, because by dying, he went to the afterlife and he came back stronger. Whether or not the Saiyans were going to come in the first place, Goku became a stronger character because he died, but the point that we're trying to get at is, in that moment, Goku allowed the enemy to get away, that had kidnapped his son. Now, when we move on to another example, he also spares Vegeta's life, which once again, because of how Dragon Ball's writing work, this ended up being a good thing in the long term, but at the moment, it was actually a mistake. And when we go through other examples, like Goku sparing the Ginyu Force members and telling them to leave, and then Goku sparing Frieza 7 different times, and yes, when I say 7 different times, I literally made an entire video explaining how Goku spared Frieza's life 7 different times, where you can actually watch that more in depth. But to tell you how Goku doesn't learn his lesson, even against somebody who died and came back to life and tried to get revenge against Goku on Goku's own planet, look what happened in Resurrection of F. Goku once again gave Frieza another chance, and what did Frieza do? Frieza used the opportunity to try and attack Goku like he always does every single time. And it took Frieza literally destroying the planet and Whis revealing an ability that he could directly completely reverse time so that Goku could go back and kill Frieza before anything happened, for Goku to realize that this weakness would be realized. Fortunately for Future Trunks, this is not a problem because he always handles his enemies all the time. Because both Future Trunks and Future Goku killed Frieza and King Cole. And even though we don't have direct proof as to how Future Goku killed Future Frieza and Future King Cole, we can make a pretty good educated guess based off of Goku's character that he probably came to Earth, gave them some type of warning, they obviously refused or attacked him, and then Goku had to eventually put them down, as we can read his character very openly. Trunks is an overall much more intelligent character than Goku, and when you factor in that intelligence is something that's extremely important too, that's a huge advantage that Trunks would have long-term in a situation where he was equally as strong as all of the other characters, so for that specific reason, he gets a huge edge over Goku. Now, this ultimately leaves us with Piccolo. The problem with Piccolo is the fact that he has a pretty dark past. And he has blemishes on his resume where he was originally a villain. He did a lot of bad things even in the beginning of Dragon Ball Z, where he kidnapped a kid and forced him to train. Now eventually that was a good thing because it made Gohan stronger for the future. And because of this, that's literally the only reason why Trunks gets a huge edge over Piccolo. He has no blemishes on his report card. He has good grades in all of his classes, where Piccolo had to improve his grades in some classes, and for all of those reasons we can say with absolute confidence that future Trunks is the greatest hero in Dragon Ball history.